Have you ever been loved so completely, so unquestionably, that it made you feel both safe and trapped at the same time? That's how it was with Chris. He was the kind of man who folded your laundry without being asked, remembered your coffee order, and told your mother you were the best thing that ever happened to him. And yet, there I was, watching Leo stretch in the kitchen in shorts that should have been illegal, wondering what it would feel like to be wanted recklessly instead of lovingly. It started as a fleeting thought, a glance too long, a laugh shared a little too close. But thoughts grow teeth when you feed them, and soon I found myself drowning in a current I never meant to swim in. I didn't plan to betray Chris. But desire doesn't wait for permission, and Leo never played fair. Chris and I have been together for 5 years, long enough to fall into a rhythm, short enough to still call it love. We met in Boston, in the rain, because that's the kind of thing that happens in stories like this. I was carrying groceries, trying to balance a broken umbrella and a box of wine. He offered help with a kind of smile that didn't feel like flirting, just kindness. I think that's what hooked me. Chris always made me feel like I was being seen without being judged. We moved into a top-floor apartment in Cambridge a year later. Exposed brick walls, warm string lights, a kitchen with a perpetually leaking faucet that we never got around to fixing. We cooked on Sundays. We fought about laundry. We made up with forehead kisses and long walks around the Charles River. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Chris was my calm. Steady, emotionally literate, thoughtful to a fault. He'd hold me when my anxiety spiraled, listen without interrupting, love me without condition. And yet, somewhere in the middle of our bliss, I started craving something I couldn't name. Not more love, but maybe more chaos. More asterisk one dot asterisk. When my older brother Jacob invited us to join his group for a week at a summer rental in Provincetown, Chris was the first to say yes. "It'll be good to get away," he said, curling beside me on the couch, our dog snoring at our feet. That's when Jacob mentioned Leo was coming. Leo, his old college roommate. The name alone pulled something tight in my stomach. I hadn't seen him in years, not since a graduation party where he drunkenly called me dangerously cute and laughed it off the next morning. But the memory stuck like a splinter. Leo arrived at the beach house with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a swagger that made the screen door creak louder than usual. Sun-bleached curls, legs built like a runner's, and a laugh that sounded like it belonged in someone else's bedroom. He greeted me like an old friend, with a hug that lingered a second too long, a wink only I caught. Chris didn't notice. Or maybe he did and trusted me enough not to worry. That first night, we all drank too much rosé and played cards on the patio. The breeze carried ocean salt and something heavier I couldn't quite name. Chris leaned into me, laughing at a joke I barely heard. Leo watched from across the table, tongue pressed to the inside of his cheek. And just like that, the baseline of our love, our quiet, comfortable life, began to tremble beneath the weight of something I didn't yet understand but already feared. The next morning, Chris made coffee while I sat barefoot on the deck, still shaking off sleep. Leo came out in those tight navy shorts, no shirt, a towel slung over his shoulder like an afterthought. He said good morning like it was a secret we shared, like the air between us had already shifted, even if nothing had technically happened. Chris handed me a mug, kissed the top of my head, and went back inside to call his mom. I watched Leo stretch, arms above his head, torso lengthening, abs flexing, and I hated myself for noticing. Hated the warm, nervous pull low in my stomach. The days passed slowly, thick with heat and undercurrents. Chris and I still touched, still laughed, still slept with our legs tangled at night. But there was a distance creeping in, so subtle it felt imaginary. We started missing each other in conversation. He'd say something, and I'd nod without really listening. I'd touch his arm, and he'd be scrolling on his phone. I wanted to shake it off, chalk it up to vacation fatigue. But I knew better. I was pulling away, quietly, emotionally, and I didn't know how to stop. Leo made it worse just by existing. He'd find me alone and linger. On the porch swing, in the hallway, in the kitchen at midnight. Always close enough to make me aware of him, but never overt enough for anyone else to notice. One night after dinner, the group went into town for drinks. Chris stayed behind, claiming a headache. I offered to stay, too, but he waved me off. Go. Have fun. You never let loose. That stung more than he knew. At the bar, Leo stuck by my side like we were there together. We drank whiskey sours and shared fries. He leaned in close to talk over the music, his hand brushing my back, his breath warm against my ear. "Your boyfriend's a lucky guy," he said, sipping his drink. "But he doesn't really see you, does he?" I stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? Leo shrugged, a glimmer of smugness in his eyes. "Just saying. You're quieter around him. Smaller." I laughed, too sharply. "Maybe I'm just happy." "Sure," he said, but his eyes held mine a moment too long, as if waiting for the lie to crumble. When we got back to the house, Chris was already asleep. I lay beside him, guilt wrapped around my chest like a weighted blanket. He rolled over, draped an arm across me instinctively. Even in sleep, he reached for me. I should have felt safe. Instead, I felt hollow. The next morning, I woke up early. Leo was already outside, reading on the deck. He looked up, smiled like he'd been waiting for me. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied. I sat beside him, the sun warming my skin. "I had a dream about you," he said casually, flipping a page. My throat tightened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "This flirting. The looks. The comments. I'm with someone." He set the book down and turned to face me. "I know. Doesn't mean I can't want you." I stood abruptly, heart racing. "This is a game to you." He didn't follow me inside, but his voice caught me as I slid the screen door shut. "Does it feel like a game?" I didn't answer. Later that afternoon, Chris and I walked along the beach in near silence. The wind tangled my hair. His hand reached for mine, and I let him take it. But the grip was loose, uncertain. "You've been distant," he said finally. "I'm just tired," I replied, but the lie tasted bitter. He stopped walking. "Is there something I should know?" I stared at him, those eyes that once held all my certainty, and felt something collapse inside me. Not yet. I couldn't tell him yet, because I didn't know what I wanted, because admitting it meant it was real. "No," I said, "there's nothing." And that was the first betrayal. Not the kiss that would come later, but the silence I chose in that moment. The one that said, "I'm not ready to lose you, but I'm already losing myself." It happened on the 5th night. Everyone else had gone to the bonfire down the beach. Chris was tired again. He'd been quiet all day, his smile slower, more studied. I told him I'd stay in with him, but he urged me to go. "You've been so restless lately," he said, not accusingly, just gently. "Maybe you need the fire more than I do." I didn't argue. That should have been my first sign. The flames danced against the night sky as the group laughed and passed around a bottle of tequila. Leo sat beside me, closer than usual. We didn't speak much. The silence was louder than words. At some point, I stood to leave. He followed. We didn't talk on the walk back. Just a crunch of sand beneath our feet, the moonlight casting everything in silver blue shadows. When we got to the porch, I paused. So did he. And then I kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even passionate. It was desperate. A quiet explosion. I wanted to feel something. Wanted to see if the tension had weight or if I was just imagining it all. His lips met mine without hesitation. A second, maybe two, and then I heard it. The screen door creaked open. Chris. He stood there barefoot, in an old hoodie, face pale under the porch light. His eyes flicked between us. Not angry, just stunned, like he'd walked into a version of our life he hadn't agreed to. I stepped back like I'd touched fire. Leo froze. "Chris," I began. He held up a hand. "Don't." The stillness that followed felt biblical. "I came out to check the lock," he said softly, looking past me. "Didn't expect a floor show." Leo quietly retreated, disappearing inside without a word. I stood there, chest heaving, unable to meet Chris's eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Chris laughed. Not bitterly, more like disbelief cracked open his ribs. "I figured something was off. But I didn't think you'd actually, with asterisk and dot asterisk. I didn't plan it. No one ever does." His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the man I built a home with, the one who held my nightmares, Memorize my coffee order, who once cried watching me dance around the living room to Stevie Nicks. I reached for him. He stepped back. "How long?" he asked. "There's nothing going on." That was the first time. He tilted his head. But it wasn't the first betrayal, was it? And he was right. The betrayal started long before the kiss. In the way I started dressing nicer when Leo was around. In the laughs I shared with him that I didn't share with Chris. In the emotional energy I siphoned off my relationship and funneled elsewhere. "I don't know what's wrong with me," I said, voice barely above a whisper. Chris's eyes shone. "You could have talked to me about whatever you were feeling. I'm not perfect, but I've always tried to make this a place you could be honest." I nodded, unable to find the words. "Maybe that's what hurts the most," he added. "That you didn't trust me enough to let me in before it got this far." He turned and walked inside, quietly closing the door behind him. And just like that, the stillness became something else. Loss, not the loud kind. The quiet kind that lingers in your chest and leaves you staring at the sea, wondering how something so full could suddenly feel so empty. Chris left the beach house the next morning. He didn't slam doors or make a scene. He just packed his things, gave a polite goodbye to everyone, and left without looking back. He didn't say anything to me. He didn't need to. His silence carried more weight than any shouting match ever could. Leo avoided me for the rest of the trip. Not that I tried to find him. Whatever spark had existed between us was doused by the reality of what it cost. It wasn't a fire, it was a flare. Bright, brief, and blinding. When I got home a few days later, Chris was gone. His stuff mostly cleared. He'd left a box of my things by the door. Some books, a sweatshirt, a framed photo of us at the lake 2 summers ago. On top was a note, asterisk take care of yourself. Please, that asterisk, that please, gutted me more than anything else. There was still love in it. Even in his leaving, Chris loved with grace. I spent the next few weeks trying to remember how to be alone. I'd walk past our old spots, the coffee shop, the bookstore, the bench near the river, and feel a version of myself fading. Not because of what I'd lost, but because of who I'd become to lose it. It took time to accept that betrayal wasn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it was slow, creeping, grown in neglect and watered by silence. I didn't cheat with my body first. I did it with my absence, with the way I stopped showing up honestly. That realization hurt more than anything Leo ever made me feel. Love, I've learned it, isn't about perfection. It's about presence. And when I stopped being present with Chris, I started writing our ending. I still don't have all the answers. Maybe I never will. But I know this. Sometimes the person who breaks your heart isn't the villain. And sometimes the person who causes the damage is you, not because you didn't love enough, but because you didn't love right. And now, when I think of Chris, I don't wonder if he's forgiven me. I wonder if I've learned how to forgive myself.